Got it. Well, welcome everyone to our inaugural, I guess we'll call it, town hall meeting. This actually was part of the board's commitment for reach out to our members. So this is something that we hope will actually happen on a more regular annual basis. The 6-month break at around 6 months after GIS Pro, and really use this to give you an update on where the board of directors, what we've been doing over the past 6 months to members. I am Tom Fisher. I am the president of the board of URISA. I'm also the GIS administrator in Cuyahoga County. If you're not familiar with Cuyahoga County, that is on beautiful Lake Erie. I'm actually working in Cleveland, so you can see the lighthouse and boat behind me. That is representative of where I'm actually standing right now. If we could have folks mute themselves. Perfect, thank you. So the agenda today, we're going to do an introduction of our executive committee and also present to you the board members. We're going to go through some leadership development committee updates, but with Ashley Hitt, also policy advisory update. We're going to do a little bit of membership and marketing. Tim Nolan couldn't make it today. He's actually in the wild and wonderful state of West Virginia at a conference presenting actually right now as we speak. We're going to get a financial update from our treasurer, Judy Colby-George. We're going to have John, our president-elect, present a little bit about our branding efforts and the timeline for that. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about our value statement, and then wrap up with some of the professional education offerings, kind of leave you out on a high note, and then leave it for some question and answer. So who's all on the board? Who's presenting today? Well, first up there at the top, that's considered the executive committee of URISA. I'm on that as well as the president, but we also have John Nolte, our president-elect. Ashley Hitt is our past president. Tim, like I said, is not able to make it, but he is our secretary. And Judy Colby-George is our treasurer. And also the hostess with the mostess for GIS Pro in Maine. So the one thing that I think that I'd like to point out, and this is all the board members and what states they represent, but as you can see, there's a very diverse group of us, and in location and all the other things that make up a great board. So I wanted to point that out. But we just finished meeting in Portland, Maine, site of GIS Pro in October, and we had a really great productive meeting. And we're going to touch on a number of those things that we talked about during this presentation. So I want to pass it off to Ashley to talk a little bit about the Leadership Development Committee and also Policy Advisory Committee. So Ashley, would you like to take it away?
Sure, Tom. Can you hear me okay? I'm on the road.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Much to Wendy's happiness, I'm in West Lafayette, so boiler up. So as past president, or immediate past president, I should say, of URISA, one of the responsibilities of that role is being the chair of the Leadership Development Committee. And one of the biggest things that committee does is work on the slate of candidates for the next board of directors election. And so one of the things that we had when we first started this year is a significant discussion on the process of being a URISA board member. We have reviewed some best practices and recommendations from other associations. We've talked through different best practices from ASAE, which is kind of the association of associations, and some of the best practices that they had recommended for how to best strategically put a board into place, other recommendations that they have. And so as part of that, especially because we do experience essentially low voter turnout from our membership when the board election occurs, that we did want to look and see, are there things that we can be doing? And so after a few months of discussion, reflection, researching, talking to other associations, we did decide to proceed with the current process that we have as far as having the Leadership Development Committee review nominations, self-nominations, look at the makeup of the board,
Right.
and really get a feel for what is our board either in need of, missing, and being able to put together the best slate of candidates that we possibly can to continue making URISA as strong as we envision it to be. We are also working to evaluate the process and tracking for external liaison and board member needs. This includes the URISA representatives to the GISCI board, and so we're currently working on that process. One thing is making it more open, making sure that people know if they are interested in pursuing a board position, a liaison position where they would be representing URISA, what are things that they can be doing now if they're interested in having that role in a few years or the next time that role becomes open, whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that there is information available to the membership. And so we are working on getting some information, some content available on the website so that more members are aware of what these possibilities are, because sometimes certain things do come up, maybe from a federal level, where all of a sudden there's something where, oh, a new committee at the federal level is being created and we need something, we need a nomination or a recommendation within 30 days. That doesn't give us a whole lot of time to go through a full process. But we do know that there are some that we will know a year in advance when that position might be coming open. And so how can we make that process better, more open, more inclusive, more thoughtful in how we get the best members who are available, interested, and be able to move forward on that. One of the other items we're looking at right now is better implementation of the whistleblower policy. Since we have established a new website with a ton of great content, one thing that is still missing is that policy. How do people, not just members, but also maybe conference attendees who are not members, if they need to or feel the need to report something, how can they best do that? What do they need to know? What are the details? So we're working on getting that information set up as well. We are developing a URISA board handbook as a story map. There is a board handbook that exists in a PDF form, but we feel that some of the content is duplicative. We need to make sure that if there's an update to any core docs, that is incorporated. So we're working on a story map that will not only for the board's use to have that information, but also for any potential board members or somebody who might be interested in a board role someday. What does it mean to be on the board? What responsibilities do you have? How does the board operate? What are the things that are in place during votes, and even just knowing the details of that? How do the meetings run? So we're working on that as a story map to have available for everyone. And then, as I mentioned, one of our biggest responsibilities as the LDC is reviewing nominations for president-elect and board member candidates. That's something that we are actively doing right now. We actually have a meeting this afternoon to talk about the nominations that came in from this deadline that happened this past week. And so the election this summer, we're working on that. We're also going to be reviewing the process for selecting Vanguard cabinet members as that group continues to evolve in how they represent URISA, how they get prepared, what are the things that they need, what are the challenges that the Vanguard cabinet faces, and then just the process itself, the application, the interviews. We're going through that process, making sure that that is more efficient as well. And then we're also looking at ways to increase members who vote in elections. As I mentioned earlier, it is very low. It's only about 10 to 12% every year. And so we're trying to figure out what are some ways that we can encourage more people to vote, to be a part of this process, and to make their voice heard. Tom, if you could go to the next slide, please.
Okay,
and so with the policy advisory committee, looking at that group, there is a ton that goes on with the policy advisory committee, or the PAC, that is really looking, they are continuing to review federal and state legislation, and that's for impacts to GIS in general, to geospatial professionals, to organizations and companies, to URISA, etc. So if there is anything, both positive and negative, that could impact any of those groups, we want to know about it as a policy advisory committee, because we can either put in letters of support. We can talk to groups. We can talk to the legislators who are introducing these bills to make sure that they know that we as an organization support it, or if there are even unintended consequences of legislation. We have had those situations in the past where there's a bill that sounds great, but there's this unintended consequence that would be detrimental to our geospatial organizations, companies, us as professionals. And so we want to take a look at that and make sure that we're having open communication as much as possible with state and federal legislators or whatever bodies are introducing these pieces of legislation, that they know what the potential impacts are, positive and negative. So hopefully we can do good things together and steer that change the way that hopefully is most impactful positively to everyone that the legislation is meaning to impact. We are also doing discussions on involvement and contributions to the National Spatial Data Infrastructure, the NSDI, and related organizational insights. So there's been a lot more activity happening with the NSDA lately as far as U.S. involvement. And in terms of national or federal structures, URISA has traditionally had a large number of state and local and city-based governments. How can we continue to work on that collaboration between all levels, where the data is authoritative, is being used the way it's intended to, opening those communication lines? So everything regarding the NSDI and any related organizations that are participating in that. So FGDC, NISJIC, there's so many organizations that are part of this or bringing in representatives to discuss it. We want to make sure that we're on top of that as well. And then just a few other things I'll mention that the PAC is working on, looking at U.S. Census Bureau funding and advisory committee nominations. That was one where the nomination timeline was very short. And so reaching out to URISA members through an open call of who might be interested in this, available to participate, and be able to put that together, as well as supporting and signing on to letters of support for the U.S. Census Bureau and making sure that they are funded adequately, because there are so many of our organizations that are using things like the ACS data and things in between the decennial census. We also continue as the PAC to look at Legato and how that might impact GPS signals and signing on to letters of support there. And then items with the FGDC. And so Josh Delmonico, who's the current director of the FGDC, we have had him come on to PAC calls and be a very involved part of URISA as well. And so the biggest thing I wanted to mention there at the bottom is that as you hear of things, the PAC and especially Glenn O'Grady, who's the chair of the PAC, does a phenomenal job of keeping up to date on so many fronts, the state, the federal side. So if there is something that you hear about that the PAC is not actively either researching or considering, discussing, debating, etc., please reach out and let us know, because if it's something that could positively or negatively impact geospatial professionals in any way, the PAC definitely wants to review it. And there's a really strong group of people that are members of that committee that are putting in time and energy to research, to consider those positive and negative impacts, unintended consequences. And so it's a really great group. So if you have anything, please let the PAC know. Or if you are interested in being part of that, to have those considerations and looking at different scenarios of how things could be altered, please reach out and indicate an interest in joining as well. But I know we've got quite a bit more content. So Tom, I will turn it back over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley, for the update on both the leadership development and the policy advisory committee. I will just as an aside, the advocacy that URISA provides the GIS profession is exceptional. And one of those benefits that I don't think a lot of the members understand is a benefit to them. But I just want to emphasize that, our advocacy for the profession is one of the main reasons why we exist as an organization. So again, Tim Dolan was not able to make it today, so I'm going to present his membership and marketing. Obviously, one of a cornerstone of our organization is the membership, right? And volunteering. And in order to gain membership and recognition of who we are as an organization, it takes some marketing, right? So these two groups are connected together. And Tim, as our secretary, has been an integral part of both of these in his board, tenure. So Just want to talk a little bit about the membership activities this year. We do monthly URISA meetups, and those are on our calendar. I'm going to talk a little bit about Connect, but that's where you can learn about those. But Wendy is remarkable at putting a lot of this stuff out on social media. So follow us in social media and you will learn about how, when, why, where on our monthly URISA meetups. And then we also have a book club for all of you, bookworms, I guess. It's an interesting club that they don't actually all deal with books related to geography and GIS, but a lot of in professional development and leadership. So if it's of interest to you, reading or even doing the audiobooks, they get together on a regular basis and talk through the books and the readings that the group agrees that they're going to discuss. Right now, our membership team is working on a couple of projects. The retaining membership project is ongoing. That is, once you are a member, what do we do? What do we have to do to keep you as a member, right? So that's expressing all of the benefits that you receive as a member of the organization. So that's currently going on. And then mapping our membership, right? To understand where we are strong in membership, but then also where we aren't and where we need to focus those efforts on getting the word out. And, and I will tell you, probably the best way of marketing the organization is word of mouth. You all as members telling friends about the organization and what it is we do gets them to come and join and become volunteers and help their profession. So then they're also, from the marketing standpoint, really good at putting together promotions. I know Canva is one of their tools there, but they put promotions together for conferences, webinars, and all of our training opportunities. And so get out on social media and you should see a lot of their handiwork. Be sure, if you're on our social media and you see a lot of Wendy's posts, be sure to like, share, and promote them as well. That's I guess go viral is what we like to say, I guess, in the social media world. But that is really the again, a cornerstone of the organization, right? Membership and marketing. So how do you become a volunteer? How do you, as a member, you say you want to, chip in, and we love our volunteers, right? We are a full, almost 100% volunteer organization, except for our dedicated staff in Chicago. But it really sort of helps the organization run. So if you are a member right now, and when you become a member, I encourage you to go to our website, and in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little thing called Connect. If you click on that, it will take you to your member login. And you can see here on the right-hand side of this other window is my beautiful picture. That's me on a 14er in Colorado, but you can put whatever you want there. That's who you are. You click on that, and then from the next screen, you'll see groups, right? And those groups that will actually list all of the groups that we have, committees, task force, you name it. They should all be listed in there. And that's where you actually go through and join. So each one of our committees, task force, groups should have a page. Go in there, join it, be part, of the updates that come to your email inbox. And just become more involved that way. There's also almost all of our committees meet on a monthly basis. Some actually meet on a quarterly basis or a biannual or bi-monthly basis, but they meet regularly. So get in, jump in, connect, and then join the calls, right? And we're actually going to be working on, a volunteer page where you can actually list what it is that your strengths are and where you think you'd be good at volunteering, but also what are the needs of the committees from the volunteer standpoint. And so what we're going to try to do is meet the volunteers where they are and really help encourage them, bring them along into the organization. I'm now going to pass it off to our treasurer, Judy Colby-George, to give us a financial update on the organization. Judy?
Great, thanks, Tom. So our financial outlook is good. We have 11 months of overhead expenses in the bank, so we can feel confident and secure. That's even more than what we have recommended to keep in the bank. So our revenues are a little bit ahead of last year. So that is also good. And because we have this extra money sitting in the bank, the financial committee has been working on developing an investment policy, which we're pretty much done with. The board's going to vote on it in June. And then that policy outlines a purpose, objectives, it defines the funds, and it outlines the annual review process. So the idea is that these be invested in very safe, you know, we're not going out and doing day stocks or anything like that. But very safe funds with a bank, and that they'll be laddered so that, you know, if we get CDs, that they come due like all different times so that we always have access to the money. What we decided is to create 2 different funds, an opportunity reserve fund and an operating reserve fund. So the opportunity reserve fund is a long-term investment. So those we will probably ladder out a bit longer between, and they'll have hopefully a slightly higher interest rate. And that would be money we're putting aside for big projects that come up. And then when we know that they're coming, we know we have this fund that we can pull it into the budget for that year. The operating reserve fund is intended to cover budgeted expenses. But we want to create that opportunity to earn interest on funds greater than 3 months of operating expense. So we always want to keep 3 months of operating expense just in the checking account. And then this would be taking the remaining money that we don't put into the opportunity reserve fund to fill out that operating reserve fund, so that we always know that if for some reason, a lot of times there's a lag between things. So, you know, like we might have to pay for a conference before we get money in, or we might have to pay for this before that, you know, that comes in, so that we always have that money available. But we're hopefully making a little interest on it. In a checking account, it's really not making any interest. It's just sitting there. So, the committee's been working on this investment policy, and we've looked at a couple different ones and sort of took what we thought made the most sense for URISA. The board's looked at it, the committee's now approved it, and so now it'll go to the board. And so that's what the financial committee's been working on. I see that there's a question about what special projects. So when we did the marketing project, that would be the thing. That's sort of where this came from, because we didn't have that. And so when we created the budget, you know, we had to think about how that was going to work. And so this is just sort of identifying that we do sometimes have projects that come along. So it could be maybe a new conference that we want to get started at some point in the future. It could be, I'm trying to think of what other things it might entail. You know, there could be some piece of software that we feel we need to purchase, and it might take us a while to figure out how to get that working. So we might need to get it before it's going to help the organization with returns. There's probably a million other things, but that's what's coming to my mind at this exact moment. But that's the purpose of it. It's for like big projects that, you know, that aren't in the everyday. It's not going to fund like a position or, you know, the day-to-day running of the organization. It would be specific targeted things that we work on. I think that's it.
It's those one-off projects that are there to help us fulfill the strategy and the mission of the organization, right? So as the board, we would come together and you know, we would approve, or a special project, we would actually need some funding for that. So that's where that money comes in, right, Judy?
Correct.
Excellent. Okay, yep. Perfect. Thank you, Judy. You know, I want to, you know, take this point to talk about the board's responsibility, fiduciary responsibility, right? And so I think a lot of people think that the fiduciary responsibility of a board means finance, but it doesn't. So fiduciary is really another word, or it's a word that means to hold in trust. And so the board actually has 3 areas: duty to care, duty to obedience, and duty to loyalty. What I want to say is that, you know, the health of the financial health of the organization is due to the fiduciary responsibility of the board. and also the fiduciary responsibility of the executive group. So I think the financial health and success, although we haven't always been there, I think because we do hold this responsibility, I think that's why I'd like to say that's the reason why we are where we are today, is because of the care and commitment of those in leadership, both Wendy and her staff, but also the board of directors over the course of URISA's history. So the branding effort and timeline. So John Nolte, our president-elect, has been leading this charge even from the time when he was on the board before he was actually president-elect. So I'm going to pass it off to John and kind of have him give you an overview of the timeline on this. So go ahead, John.
Yep, thank you. So I'm John Nolte. I am the president-elect. I also work for Denver Water here as a GIS manager. This was something that, as we start each cycle of the board every 3 years, we roll off the board, new people roll on the board. We look at the organization and we look at the ideas around it and how it's changed, and that was kind of where it started. We looked at not only how the organization has changed, but also how the industry has changed. So we've seen a lot of changes in the industry over the last, we've been in existence over 60 years, and so we've seen a lot of changes. And one of the things that we looked at was we've had 2,000 members, roughly 2,000 members for the last 20 some odd years. And one of the ideas was, how do we grow that? How do we fix that issue with just having, or are we okay with just having 2,000 members? And that was one of the ideas behind this branding effort. And so we started the process in Baltimore. One of the reasons we started this process is because, COVID, it impacted some other organizations. They were seeing some decline in membership. They were seeing some financial issues. Some of the organizations actually folded over that time. And while we remained strong, we wanted to see what we could do in growing the organization. And so we started this process, and we were really looking at the core competencies. And so what that means in what our expertise is. And over the past 10, 15 years, one of the areas that we've really focused on is the GIS Leadership Academy. And so we're looking at leadership and management. And then from my perspective, when I really started getting involved, and this is kind of a personal story, when I really started getting involved in URISA in 2014, I mean, I had been involved before that, but when I really started to get into the organization and start to get involved in the board and that type of stuff, it was 2014. And I was working as a consultant in the business realm. And there wasn't really a place for me. I remember coming to the GIS Pro in New Orleans and seeing that, it was really focused on government and things like that. And so we wanted to look more at how we can grow that portion of that membership, how we can focus more on, maybe some additional work, the data science side of things, how the industry has changed, the consulting, the business side, business intelligence, those types of things. So we had this conversation of doing all this information to try to provide a kind of what our core competencies are for URISA, and look at maybe even changing the brand, maybe even changing the name, changing ideas around it, or just looking at taglines and that type of stuff. So we hired a marketing firm and we went through the whole process. And as Judy was talking about just briefly, one of the things that we looked at was how we could fund this. And so we started with the volunteer effort, and we realized quickly that we just couldn't do it with just the volunteers. So we had to hire a professional firm. We went through a bid proposal. We did an RFP. We did a bid proposal. We hired this firm. We allocated about $100,000 for this project, although I think we've only spent about $30,000 so far. And we probably won't spend too much more on this other than what we're doing with the design. But we hired Niger Design. And one of the reasons we hired them was because they had expertise in GIS. One of their main members was a GIS person. And so they had familiarity with the industry, and which is what we really wanted. We wanted somebody that had understanding of what the geospatial industry was, what it's going to become, and have that consulting ability to tell us, really where we want to be. And they started out with a survey, and the survey basically surveyed our membership and past membership, as well as people that are familiar with URISA. And from that, we took that information and we started looking at what were the core competencies, and so what our expertise is, what people know us for. And that was really where we started to kind of develop this methodology. The big thing that we had just recently was we started the value proposition. And so what we did is we took all that information from those surveys, from the branding information that we received from Niagara, and we had another meeting with all of about 35 people, from past presidents to past board members to members to the Vanguard cabinet. We wanted that diversity of all the different level of memberships that we had, and we had a value proposition. And we built this idea around all the information that we had from the survey that we did previously. And so that led us to what will be the next slide that Tom will talk about, is building that value proposition. And so that was really kind of an interesting concept, because we looked at all the different aspects that go into that branding and the ideas around that, and we formulated into something that made sense to us and what we were looking at. And so, you know, and everything's on the table at this point too, looking at a new name possibility, looking at if we just use the acronym, looking at keeping it the same and using just different branding and different taglines. And that was all on the table. And so we wanted to really come up with a good idea, a value proposition that would represent all of the community that we were representing, as far as the geospatial, GIS, community data science, and all the people that were involved in that. And so that was kind of what led to the last little bit. And we've really kind of relied a lot on the expertise of Niagara and the members that we currently have. And so that's where we're at now. We are looking at that idea for possibility of, you know, changing the name, changing the brand, changing the logos. You know, we're still in the process of that. And so you can't really say too much more, because we're still doing a lot more research and we have a lot more time to dedicate to this. But we're hoping to get something in place that we have this conversation again in GIS Pro and get more input from our members and the people in our community. One of the things that we did want to point out too was that in the past, in the Columbus GIS Pro, we had 60% new people that weren't URISA members, and they were coming into this organization and not understanding what we were, and they're feeling that a place for them. And we want to make sure that we have that as part of our branding strategy. We want them to feel welcome. We want that 60%. We want to translate that into new members or into something else that would relate to how we can grow and maintain and do what our core competencies are, which is to really focus on the geospatial community and the information, the stuff that we do for our communities and our, you know, organizations that we represent. And so at this point, I'll turn it back over to Tom to talk more about it. But if you have any questions, I'm sure I haven't really been monitoring the chat, but yeah.
Well, we'll have some time at the end. I'm sure there will be questions, but
okay.
But thank you, John. John's, you know, been stalwart in leading this effort, so appreciate that. I'm going to extend on a little bit of what John said, because we actually had a really productive board meeting in Maine back in April, and vigorous discussion. I think any board member that you talked to would agree, that was actually in attendance, would agree with that statement. So I want to kind of go over why rebrand, why now, right? And so again, the board, and you can read this, but I just want to emphasize that the board took it a serious responsibility to understand our community and geospatial and its evolution, right? Again, URISA started over 60 years ago, and technology, you know, it changes, and the landscape of who uses technology changes, and you know, the universe of those of the community will expand as well. And so We sought, again, feedback from a GIS Pro. We consulted with Niger, like John had mentioned. We even convened that broader membership group where we all got together with Niger and we started to talk about us from a public sector, private sector, utilities, you name it, wherever you came from, and what the value was of the organization to all of those different user groups, right? And so it was recognized that the organization of URISA, really, it's a community that's larger than what the name URISA in its long form implies, right? Urban and regional information systems, right? It's really has grown to not just the public sector, but also to the private sector. And those folks that actually are professions in certain areas, but then also use the tools on a day in, day out basis, and have really gravitated towards identifying themselves under the geospatial moniker, right? So what we really wanted to do with this vision statement, and also the thought around rebranding and the name, was to better reflect our expanded mission as an organization, right? We really wanted to align who we are as an organization, as we exist today, with the broader community, right? And so we also do not ever want to, lose our history. So we also are dedicated to, our past, right? And we understand that we built this on the shoulders of giants, right? This organization has actually existed for over 60 years, but it also weathered COVID. And let's be honest, that was some trying times, and we came out, I think, ahead than of a lot of organizations. So there's a lot of staying power here, and as the president of the organization, I'm very proud to be leading this group, and with my fellow board members, and I think we all are. So again, we took this mission very seriously, and this is what we came up with. So this is the new value statement, and I kind of left it in its form, where we actually took who are we for, who are we doing this for, by that, unlike, we, that. These are the building blocks of that Niger gave us to build this vision or value statement around, right? So I'm going to read it because something like hearing it, but then I'm going to actually kind of condense it down into its long form, but without the building blocks here. So our organization is for those who want to make a difference using geospatial technologies, who seek value at the intersection of learning, leadership, and GIS, by providing a network that caters to emerging and established professionals, that promotes, protects, and expands the profession through education, opportunities, and strategic connections. Unlike other organizations that have a narrower focus on software, industry, or geography, we strive to provide a home for all geospatial professionals through our collaborative community. So, intelligent people can differ on the vision and value of the organization, but we think that this, as the board, we came together and we agreed upon this, saying this really captures the essence of who we are now and what we want to be to the community. So, well, I took a slide out. I apologize. Before I get into this, what I want to say is that we also vigorously debated and deliberated a name change, right? We are currently going through the process of doing our due diligence around the name change. So we don't have anything to announce today, but understand that we will soon. When, not sure, but understand that the board takes its responsibility seriously. And again, we also want to, with any sort of name change, we want to be cognizant of our past. So URISA will always be a part of the name of who we are, right? So, and that's the goodwill in the name, right? You don't have 62 years or 63 years almost of history without that recognition. So stay tuned. More to come on this. But I want to get into a couple of, the professional education components and then open it up to questions. So upcoming webinars, May 30th, QGIS, we're not just Esri. So the open source, we're going to do just the basics on May 30th. URISA's VC MAPI Q&A will be June 11th. And then, shameless plug here, this is my group. The Excellence in GIS Cuyahoga County's Fiscal GIS Hub will be June 14th. I will not be presenting. So if you're afraid of that, don't worry. One of my staff members will be taking that on. So upcoming GIS Leadership Academies. We have one coming up here next month in Seattle. I'm not sure if there are any seats available. I know that it was going fast, but that's a very popular location. But don't worry if you missed out on Seattle. We've got Fort Worth, Texas, another great location coming up here in November. And for those that have taken the GIS Leadership Academy, we have first, again, another inaugural offering of the Advanced GIS Leadership Academy in the Windy City, Chicago, in August, the 12th through the 16th. So again, if you have taken GIS Leadership Academy, GLA, Advanced GLA is for you. If you know other people that haven't taken GIS Leadership Academy and you think that that would be a fit for them, spread the good word. If it's for you, we have a few offerings. Now, I will mention also that we do have another virtual offering coming up. More details to come about that, but that we, again, want to meet our members where they are. The upcoming conferences. So what I will say is our flagship conference is GIS Pro, and it is going to be amazing. I will add, this lighthouse is Lake Erie, but there are lighthouses in Maine, and I went to go visit while I was there. I ate 5 different lobsters 5 different ways. If lobster is your thing, that's the place to be. But content, great content. We are going to have a full plate of GIS content, and a great way to network and meet your colleagues, right? To be a part of the network of who we are as an organization. And then we also have Valtech is coming to the great state of Ohio, Buckeye State, in March of next year. So if valuations technologies are your thing in GIS, then put that on your schedule to attend that as well. And then now I will open it up to questions for me as your president. And also, if I am unable, I also have a cadre, a cohort of board members here to support me. So I want to open it up, and I know we've been answering questions in the chat, but if there's something that folks want to ask, now's the time to do it. If you want to raise your hand, and then we'll call on you. That, I think that probably will work best. Did we cover everything? Did we buttoned it up, right? Well, this has been fun, and did want to say that, this is something I think we want to hear your feedback on this as well. Was this something that you thought was useful? Is this something that that you would like to see, on a more regular basis? Again, we're here for the members. So, and members and volunteers are what make this organization run.
So Abe has a question.
Okay.
So, Abe, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah.
Good morning. Abe Coughlin, City of Escondido, down in Southern California, near San Diego.
Yes.
We've had a bit of a discussion lately about, I'm going to bring up the email so I get all this right. The statistical, where is it? The fun stuff. The standard occupation classifications put out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So one of the local colleges brought it up, stating that without GIS having a clearer SOC code within this system, the education facilities find it harder to apply for certain grants. and there's another reason here. Anyway, so we've put it out into the regional group here in San Diego and discussed in the GIS managers meeting that we have. We're all for it, and we are going to provide some content, some text to the individual at this college to put it forward and hopefully, develop the wording to support this public statement. Now, these BLS codes, SOC codes, are only updated every 10 years, and they're going to be talking about it in the next sort of 4 to 8 weeks. So we can do it at a regional approach, but I'd be very interested to know what URISA can do at this larger scale, whether you see value in the same sort of thing, whether it's important for you, whether it's on your list of things, apparent things to consider.
Now Wendy, did you have your hand raised for a question, or did you have a response for this? Or
for a question.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you said that pardon my ignorance, but the SOC, that's an acronym that I'm.
Cool. So the BLS is the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Right.
And they have SOCs, which are standard occupation classifications.
Okay.
Right. And there are thousands of them. And basically they do randomized collection of data across agencies across the nation to identify their salaries and other pieces of information.
Okay.
Right. And so that impacts, of course, our salaries, as GIS professionals. But yeah, if the education department, the education organizations cannot attain some additional funding to develop curriculum, right, it's putting them at a disadvantage.
Okay. And we're hearing a lot of this, right? I mean, this is something that actually URISA is taking up. We are, I'm not sure if it's necessarily tied into the Bureau of Labor Statistics SOC, but I'm not sure that it can't be. So we are actually looking at our professional education committee is actually looking at, standard, the titles of job position, or the standard titles for jobs in the geospatial, but then also the descriptions, I believe, but then we're coupling that in a separate effort, but that of a salary survey, right, to sort of understand the salary dynamics within GIS. I can tell you from personal experience that there is a discrepancy between at least in my county, between what is considered a GIS analyst and an information systems analyst. And so because you add GE to the front of it, it somehow is determined that it deserves a discount, fee, or salary. So definitely understand the problem. And we are looking for volunteers or people that can help inform the organization around these issues. So Abe, we definitely want to hear what you have to say, or for you to weigh in. Again, it's our professional education committee that is leading that group. So please, as I said, sign into Connect and get on there and post this as a comment, around that, and something that you're interested in pursuing.
I will,
because that's why we exist as an organization, Abe. This is exactly the reason why we're here.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Wendy, you had a question.
I don't have a question. I just want to do a shameless plug. So I'm Wendy Peliquin. I'm the chair of the GIS Leadership Academy. And I know a few minutes ago, Tom mentioned we're going to have 2 academies in person, and we are launching the inaugural Advanced GIS Leadership Academy for those that have attended the first and would like to continue your education and learning experience. And last week, we did do a webinar with the other instructors that'll be there who have helped been putting this together. And because Wendy Nelson is amazing, she did record that for everybody. So if you have questions about the AGLA, want to know what to expect that week, it is going to be highly interactive and we're very excited about it. But make sure and go online and you can watch the recording. And if you have any other additional questions, you can reach out to me or any of the other instructors or Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy. Pelican, Wendy P. Yeah, because we got two Wendy's, I got to differentiate. But thank you to Wendy Nelson as well, always. So, Greg Mathis, you have a question?
Yes, hi. Greg Mattis, City of Visalia, California. One thing that I know I've really been looking forward to get some guidance in the geospatial community on, that I'd love to see possibly URISA help out with is program management side of things, as far as recommendations that at so many staff members that you support, you should have so many geospatial professionals. I work in the IT side of things, and there is a very well documented process that after so many computers, you have so many analysts, but there's not that recommendation when it comes to geospatial. And so working in the government side of things, they like to have those hard numbers of that, okay, we're following best practices. This is why we need an additional tech. This is why we need an additional analyst. But just for advocacy for the profession, it makes it very hard when there's no standards. So I'm not sure where to start with all that, but it's something that I think as a community, we should really focus on.
Well, again, that's why we're here. So absolutely start with us at URISA. And I have, that's for the GIS management perspective. And I know we have a number of experts, in that area that are members of the organization and former presidents and board members. And so, yeah, definitely we'll take note of that.
And one of the things that the Professional Education Committee that Tom just recommended to Abe also, one of the things that they do is help people come together to write things like a FAQ or to start to think about these kinds of topics together. And so again, you might want to go to the Connect page for the Professional Education Committee, and see if we can get interest, which I don't think it will be difficult to get interest in that particular topic. But we can at least start by looking for information and working together to try to bring that together. And then maybe there's a talk that, that makes sense. We could do a little webinar on it and just start to gather people's information. So PEC's job is not to write the content, but to help bring the content people together so that they can then work well for the organization. So that would be a good place to start with with that question. But we can certainly talk about it at the board level too.
Absolutely, Judy. And again, I've said it, but I'm going to say it again, the Connect viewer, right? This is a platform where all members can go and post comments, questions, concerns. Actually, I will tell you that I posted something in Connect a few years ago, and I got a call from an Esri representative because Jack told him to call me. So Jack was actually on the Connect viewer looking at people's posts in the community. So I guess my point to that is that even billionaires from California actually get on Connect and look around. Use that. Please put your questions, comments, concerns. Connect with other members there. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter what your time zone is. So please use that. Catherine Cargo, you had something.
I did. I'd like you to please go back to the slide that was talking about the value proposition.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Right here?
Yeah, the value statement. Yeah. This is the first time I've seen this.
Mhm.
And the first read through was awesome. I was like, man, that's great. It's very inclusive, and I like it. Now that I'm looking at it, it may be a little long, but I just want to say that I love the direction that it's going in. I think it will appeal to a broad sector of the professionals in our industry, which is what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
And I like it. So good job on that, you guys. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you,
Mhm.
Catherine. And again, that's kind of why I've left it in the building blocks phase of this. So I think that as the board, we understand that there's some brevity that
Tweaking.
can be added to this.
Right.
But I wanted to kind of expose it in its raw form that we created it in. But you're right. I think we understand that it could be a lot more succinct and easily, so that we can more easily recite the value statement to folks, right? But
Very good.
just wanted to kind of give you the broader sense of what we discussed in Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is really more of an exercise. So this was a Niger's kind of exercise to find what our value is to the community, to the broader community. So once we got this statement down, then we could really start focusing on what the true rebranding would be. And so that was kind of this. Actually, the exercise was really interesting. And I don't know if you were part of it. I think you might have been part of it, Catherine. But it was that Miro board that we had that was everybody was using.
Oh, yeah.
And
At
that
GIS
basically,
Pro,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, this was
Oh, is
the one that we just
a
did about
webinar?
a
This
month
was
ago or two. Yeah.
webinar.
And we basically took all of the statements that people kind of put in there and found the commonalities between them all, and basically came up with this at the planning meeting that we had just recently in Portland. And so it was kind of a collaboration of all the 35 or so people that we had that came up with this. And we found the top commonalities, the top 3 of each, and then centered in on those. So it was a super fun exercise, and I think it came out. It was a collaborative effort, and I think we did a really good job as an organization, not just in the group that came up with this, because it was, all of the people involved in it.
Absolutely. It was very tiered in its approach. I mean, we surveyed the broader community, then we brought it to a good representative focus of 35 individuals, and then the board really took all of that information and distilled it down into this. So this is a product of the GIS community, URISA's GIS community. That's the way I interpret it. So and so thank you to all of you that participated in the surveys and in meetings, because this is your product, right? This is what our sort of think tank came together and produced in Portland because of all that information that we had. So thank you. And more to come. I mean, this is just the start of what I think is exceptional for the organization. Watershed moment, I guess, if you will. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. If you have any other questions, please feel free. There is there's a form on the website for you to reach out to us as board members. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please go to our website to do that. But also in the Connect, right? I encourage you to go out there and reach out to these committees and work groups and task forces, and find your niche within the organization. We really want to be we want to meet you where you are. And if you see that there's something that we're missing, let us know about it. I mean, we want to be inclusive of your interests, whether that be personal or professional. Please feel free to connect with us. We're very, I think as the board, we all mentioned that one of the things that separates our organization from a lot of other ones is that we're very welcoming as a community. So we want to stay that way. So appreciate everybody coming today. We're at the top of the hour. We want to recognize that you spent an hour with us. So I really do appreciate that. I think this will be available, right, Wendy, for people to view. But again, thank you, and hopefully see you on some of our volunteer committee calls. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.